Welcome everyone to another Whaleshares Hangout. Today is November 6, 2018, and we join each week at this time, 7 p.m. Eastern, in the official Whaleshares Discord to discuss all things Whaleshares related, updates to the platform, community announcements, and things of that nature, and then follow up with questions and answers from members of the community who are joining us live here in Discord. So for this week, the big announcement that everyone is pretty much aware of now is the official WhaleToken holders have come to an agreement this week to basically disable the trading of those tokens on the DEX. You can find this post over on the official @Whaleshares account on whaleshares.io for those who are listening later. And I'll just go through and give an overview of what that announcement was and some of the thinking behind what's going on with the WhaleTokens. As we've mentioned before, the WhaleTokens at this point, the official WhaleTokens as they're being envisioned, are still in kind of like a beta experimental phase. There's a lot more that's coming with those tokens as far as how they're going to be used on the platform, how they're going to be used within the community, and how they're going to be used in supporting roles in different events like the upcoming WhaleTank when that gets reborn. So there's a lot more behind it, and I know a lot of people have even been asking about, can I have my token listed? Can I make a token? Can it be an official WhaleToken? And we've mentioned even last week when Fuzzy was on that at the moment, the tokens that are created that are in that official WhaleToken category right now, those are what we have, those are that are in the group, and those are the ones that are going to be running in this early experiment. Once we get later on down the road, WhaleTank is running and everything else is kind of where it needs to be. And the process is proven to work without any of these kind of unintended side effects and things in the ecosystem. Then we'll open up a registration process, and that will kind of be, like we've always explained, another community aspect where tokens can be, say, community voted into the WhaleTokens group, right? At the moment, it's still a closed thing while we kind of work and build towards these end goals. So today's announcement basically focuses on the fact that we decided in a vote, basically a majority vote over in the dev team, which holds the majority of the WhaleTokens, that market trading would be suspended at this time. It could always come to a vote 3-6 months from now, even after the WhaleTank, that trading is reopened. But some of the reasons behind this are basically to stabilize the WLS market in these early days. The WhaleToken concept that goes back to Fuzzy's original cross-chain token idea that operated over on Steemit, that was brought into existence when Steemit was 1 year into its operation. So the Steemit platform, both the Steem and SBD tokens, their values were already established and stabilized over there at the time these tokens were brought into existence. Okay, so the vote value over on Steemit was stable. The token values were stable. The impact on the ecosystem of Steem was stable. Okay, with Whaleshares, when we launched the platform and decided to allow the tokens to kind of launch with the platform, we had 14 tokens that kind of hit the street all at the same time. And with the inflation that's happening over on the platform, we have high inflation in these early days, the token values themselves are rising just as fast as everyone else's personal stake and reward value is growing. So the tokens are very powerful on their own. And what we're noticing is, remember, the initial purpose of the tokens are to be rewarded to those who engage in the platform through contests, initiatives, and various support things, shows and events that we have on Discord and things of that nature. They're not intended to be sold. They're not intended to be traded. They're intended to be used by the recipients of the tokens to either reward their own post or reward other people's posts in their sub-community or niche group that they work with. Okay, that's the main purpose of the tokens, is to reward value for the participation in the platform, which is kind of a self-sustaining feedback loop to support the platform itself. The rewards and the stake and everything stays in the platform for those who are participating and actually helping the platform grow itself. The tokens ended up being sold on the market relatively cheap, or actually extremely cheap compared to their value, the reward value they were given in relationship to the value of WLS itself. We were seeing that the purchasing of the tokens on the DEX was being used as a backdoor to basically circumvent the process of investors coming into the platform to buy WhaleStake or power up their accounts. Instead of using WLS, they're using the tokens, where they were getting between almost 3 and 6 times the return of actually just buying WLS and then coming to the platform and staking that. That combined with some of the other issues of kind of like stacking the tokens is what we were calling it, where a lot of sponsorship to different contests and initiatives were having multiple whale tokens being requested. Sometimes token owners were not even aware that other tokens were being pitched for sponsorship and they were being agreed to, and then multiple tokens were being stacked on the same initiative. And given the kind of substantial reward value of each token on their own, multiple tokens are not really required to support the contest on the platform as they stand right now. So we were seeing the tokens being stacked, kind of disproportionately weighted and rewarded, and then the people who are earning the tokens quickly jumping out on the DEX and selling them way below their relative reward value on the platform, which is kind of perpetuating the issue of people backdooring the investment of the platform, not using WLS. And if people are not investing into WLS when they come into the platform, it's hurting all of us. You're having low liquidity of the token, of the WLS token on the market, and you're having low purchasing, low sells and buys on the market, so which kind of drove the price down, right? So the decision to actually suspend trading of the whale tokens only affects the whale tokens themselves. This has nothing to do with anyone else who's created tokens or other assets on the DEX doing whatever they're doing with them. This is unrelated. This is the decision within the whale token holders to make sure the tokens that are in that official group doing what we're planning them to do, distributing through earning for participation in the platform, using them to reward posts, keeping it within the ecosystem. We're making sure that we have come to an agreement that these tokens are doing what they're meant to do, especially as we're leading up to, like I mentioned before, things like the WhaleTank coming online. We want to make sure they have their purpose and their value is maintained without hurting the Whaleshares environment itself and the WLS price itself. So that's the main decisions behind what's happening. It does not affect any other token on the platform. People are free to do as they choose with their own tokens. People make their own assets all the time. Secondary, you see on the list, I touched on it briefly, what had to do with the support and sponsorship. We are reviewing the process of how different contests and initiatives on the platform are being sponsored. We will most likely restrict most initiatives to 1 token per initiative, unless there is a larger kind of Whaleshares supported contest or event. Some of these shows we do and things like that, where it would put a higher drain on 1 token supporting it. So that's still being kind of talked out amongst the token holders, but we're pretty much going to do away with 3, 4, or 5 tokens supporting 1 contest, because you really can't justify that much whale stake and power being dumped behind a single contest. So we're working on some of those details now, and each token holder will kind of come to terms and have their own announcements of how they want to support the community itself. The third thing on the list you'll see is us talking about unofficial tokens. And this is not putting any kind of negative connotation on general tokens or assets being created on the DEX for similar purposes, rewarding posts and things like that with people who have lower stake. This has to do with tokens that are not directly contributing to the growth of the Whaleshares platform, which we're classifying as investment vehicles, fundraisings, or vote buying kind of tokens. Those wouldn't be qualified as official whale tokens down the road either. So just, we've seen a bunch of those tokens starting to pop up where people asking you to buy those tokens, they're investments for this or investments for that. So, use your better judgment on that. And if anyone has any issues or questions as to which tokens are official whales, whale tokens, go check out whaleshares.info. We have them listed there. The last item in the update had to do with the return of the WhaleTank. We're still finalizing the plans within the group to relaunch that program. And this is something that the official tokens will play a key a key role in supporting those community services and projects that are presented in the WhaleTank itself. So we should have an announcement coming, in the next weeks, to kind of say when the WhaleTank is coming and everything that revolves around that. As I mentioned earlier, following the launch of the WhaleTank and some of these other planned updates that are on the way to the platform, the roles and requirements of the WhaleTokens will be finalized and a registration process for inclusion put into place. And that is pretty much the updates we have for this week, and that's all covered in the post that you'll find on that at Whaleshares account. Of course, later on we will open this up to questions. We know there was some discussion earlier in the Discord about the WhaleTokens, so we'll definitely answer some questions as they come up. But everyone just needs to remember that Whaleshares itself, the platform, is only 2 months old. A lot of things are not even completed in the development phase yet. A lot of things are still coming, they're on the way, and big changes are coming, and we're trying to keep everything that we're doing in line with the original vision we had for the platform, and that includes the original vision that Fuzzy has for the use of the WhaleTokens. They are meant to be earned and used, not bought and sold. So these are all things that are just coming together, and things will evolve over time. So I'm going to hand over to Krista now to see if she has any updates on the community side of things, and after that we'll open them up to questions and answers.
Really quick, I just want to point out, Nepdi said that his market for Whaleshares is still open and that he would like to tell us why. And he said, Whaleshares have been around for over a year and operate on multiple blockchains, so that this isn't a simple decision for him that affects only WLS. And we can't tell anybody, whether or not to shut down their tokens. I'm sure that the team will discuss what happens if they don't get shut down. And I understand from his aspect of it, simply because his is based upon charity. Mine is not. It's not funding anything else. It's not rewarding people for doing something in that type of manner. So totally get it. No hard feelings there from me anyways. As far as the community goes, wow, it's been crazy busy. I'm super surprised at the amount of people that are coming into the community at this point. The numbers are just crazy. We haven't seen growth like this in a while, in a few weeks anyways. So pretty nice, to see it going on. We do have a new show coming this week. I'm not going to take away from the guys' shine and kind of give any hints about it, but Sunday we'll now have 2 shows instead of 1 show, one in the middle of the day and one in the evening. So that's pretty exciting as well.
Okay, and then I was about to type this, but I'll just say it because it makes it easier. Some of the questions going by with Nept and also JG Lake about the tokens, if they're not taken off the market, or it is, doesn't have the official whale token classification. Basically, that group of tokens, like I said, will support things like the WhaleTank and other Whaleshares sponsored events and activities, things that we're still working on. So if a token is not in that official group, then it would not be able to participate in some of those activities. You still either do everything that you do now as far as supporting posts on Steemit and on Whaleshares, or whatever the other, if it's a different token, whatever the intent of that token is for, it just wouldn't play an official role in WhaleTank and other Whaleshares sponsored events. We're trying to keep a certain classification of tokens that do a specific task, which is earn and reward.
Yeah, and it's important to remember, we're not trying to, tell anybody what they should or shouldn't do with their stake or their token. We're just looking at it from, launching the platform. It's still continuing, right? We're still launching it at this point. So we have to make decisions that we hope will stabilize the WLS price and therefore the chain itself. Sorry, that's really loud. My kid's playing games. So, I mean, it's not really to attack anybody or, tell anybody what to do with their stake. We're just trying to protect a place that we love, right?
Could I jump in here for a second?
Yes, of course.
I see something come down the road and it'll come around a few times, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Every time we get new users, people will begin to hodl their tokens because a 100% reward goes with the time as well. Um, the issue will come around again where I was hodling these coins so that I could get 100% vote, and now 100% vote actually costs more because the reward value goes up. That's going to come around every few months. Could you give us your opinion on that, please?
Well, I can jump in on that. We have to remember only in, say, for example, this first year, um, we have the high inflation rate. You started at 100% inflation, and as you get to 1 year from now, it's down to 50%, and by the end of the second year, you're down to 25%. So it will not always be a continuous rise in the reward value of those tokens. It will start to come down in time the as more users start using the platform. There's more interactions, there's more rewarding. That starts to dilute the reward pool itself. And then inflation is also coming down over time. So those will both work to kind of reduce and stabilize the values of both the tokens, not just the tokens, but any user's given reward power, their mana power, based on their whale stake, which is then related to the tokens themselves.
Naturally, just over the course of time, yeah?
Correct.
That's the hope.
Correct. And Connor has mentioned about the price of WLS increasing, and that is part of what we're trying to do because we did witness very blatant attempts to backdoor the investment of WLS into the platform by using the tokens. So this is a step, like we did mention, this is just something we're doing with the official WhaleTokens, not the other ones. In time, as everything stabilizes, we could have a vote again for the official WhaleTokens to open them back up to the market and put things back kind of the way they were, as long as it doesn't have a negative impact on the Whaleshares ecosystem or the WLS token market value itself. That's key in protecting the platform and the users because everyone's here, you're earning your WLS. The WLS has to have the value that takes precedence over the value of the tokens.
Right. And I don't really think that we've actually talked about this with the dev team. But maybe it might become at some point in time that how Steam and your Steam power are directly affecting each other. Maybe at some point in time, we do set up some sort of price feed and WLS will affect a reward power as well. I'm not sure that will ever happen, but it's a possibility. I don't know.
And tell the guy, jump in.
I was just going to tell him the same thing. We don't want you to pee yourself.
There's one thing that I would like to make into the recording and get an official response or somewhat of an official response. I'm hearing two things. Things that are damaging to the ecosystem and damaging to the value of the WLS token are things that we don't want. On the other hand, equally the opposite of that, I'm hearing if you have whale stake, use it however you want. If the system allows you to do something, use it in any way you want. It can't be both. It has to be one or the other. Now, technically, we can't tell people what to do with their stake, but we can encourage them. So I can come up with a lot of nasty ways to ruin Whaleshares with whale stake in fragmented forms with multiple user accounts if I wanted to. Technically, I could do that. Should I do that? No. So, I mean, we should also make recommendations that this thing about the customer is always right, or whale stake can be used in any way you want to use it. That should not be. I'd really like to cut that in our early days. That whale stake should be used in a sociably responsible manner for the benefit of the ecosystem as a whole. Power picks. Can you elaborate if I'm incorrect or correct?
Right. No, I mean, and that's the thing too, because there's always two sides to everything in this discussion. Even last week when we had Fuzzy on, I know he touched on some of this as well. We wanted the platform to follow his vision of Whaleshares being a sharing network. and like a social sharing network and kind of a friends sharing network. We need to kind of move away from thinking of Whaleshares being like Steemit. It's not a blogging platform like we think of Steemit, where everyone expects these long drawn out posts. We want people to be able to post. It's like a combination of Steemit, Facebook, Instagram. We want people to be able to post and share things of their everyday life. And I think, once we get some of these other changes that are coming to the platform, it'll almost be a big aha moment, and everyone will kind of release that burden that's sitting on your shoulders, where we're making that relation of Whaleshares to Steemit. I think once we get to that point, we won't look at the platform in that way anymore, and then we won't have this kind of those guilt complexes on the way we're rewarding posts, or who we're rewarding, or why we're rewarding, or the types of content that we're sharing. We're always going to have those issues, though, as far as plagiarism and copyright stuff, and those are issues we have to work on. But the content that's being posted itself, yeah, you always want it to be quality. We want people to make sure it's their own content that they're creating and sharing, but we don't want to put restrictions on really what the content itself is supposed to be. Short length, long length, whatever. So hopefully a lot of that will kind of almost resolve itself as we get some of these updates kind of rolled out in the coming months, I guess, ish. So it's kind of hard to answer those questions as far as demanding what people do or don't do with their stake, because we have that same opinion saying, Fuzzy will say, you're invested, you buy in or you earn in, and you should be free to say reward yourself. But then at the same time, you say, okay, everything in moderation. We all know that by sharing and rewarding others, you earn through curation. So you don't always have to look at things in a selfish way saying, I'm going to reward the crap out of my own posts every day and to hell with everyone else, when technically you could reward yourself moderately, but then still go out there and reward other people, because you still earn back from curation. Plus the act of curating other people's posts and content creates your own sharing network, and then more people come back and reward you in return. So people really need to look at it.
To elaborate further, Fuzzy has made no bones about it. He's not a coder himself. There's a lot of people that believe that blockchain and open source code, the way it's designed and it runs, is that if the code allows it, that's the law of the land, and as long as the code allows it, it should be freely acceptable to do so. There's a delay between adopting or changing code and testing it and making sure that it works to guide the community in such a way that they can't exploit loopholes like the whale tokens we've just seen. So I don't think that it should be considered that whatever the current system allows is what you should be exploiting. If it feels as exploiting, again, we can't control what people are doing. We can't, until technical abilities come up in development and testing, we can actually stop certain bad behavior, that's actually damaging to the platform. But we could be making recommendations at least, and I'm glad to see that there was some recommendations being used. I didn't know that whale tokens, once they are given to me, if I chose not to use them on myself, I've never sold any, but I've given a couple away, and that is equivalent of trading. It's like the tokens were given to me because they were entrusted to me for my use. Me giving it to a second or third party may not be the way that they were originally designed, so I realized that in today's show. That's a recommendation. The code allows it, but that's a recommendation that I will adhere to. So thank you for any type of recommendations the community gets. That's all they're looking for, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Well,
as far as if you earn a token and you give it to someone, it's not the same as buying and selling. Giving is the gift of giving, whether you use those tokens in the process to reward the post, or just give them to someone and they reward whatever post they want themselves. So we do have to make the distinction between buying and selling and just sharing and giving. But yeah, no, I do agree on some of the side things too. We say where Fuzzy does make that that case about do as you please with your stake, and I do see the community side of things, because I'm on the side of the fence saying, sure, but you still need some kind of governance to control the system, or you lose control of the system and it becomes like the old MySpace, which becomes a shithole and then ends up failing. But that's something that later on, as we turn the platform over to the community, and it becomes that DAC, the community is going to have to start making some of these decisions on whether you have an arbitration committee that's voted in. You already have the witnesses that are now doing some of the tasks of approving in the accounts. So we're going to have these different groups. Like, witnesses probably shouldn't be on the arbitration team. They should be separate, entities who are working on these different separations of power and governance and real world government, So we've mentioned this a lot of times in these Hangouts that over these months, as we're preparing to turn over parts of the platform to the community needs to step up and takes on these initiatives of what they want this platform to be in the future, and and how they want to see it governed. The dev team itself and the coders themselves, we don't want to be the police of this platform indefinitely. So yeah, Krista, jump in. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Snacky, there are tons of whale accounts around who are not official token holders. There's only 14 tokens. There's like actually a couple accounts that are gigantic that have nothing to do with tokens. So I mean, plenty other whales around. I don't see why anybody couldn't reach out to any of them and see if they could support them as well. Like, due to the fact that we are trying to give out possibly less tokens or not stack tokens, that new show that is coming out this Sunday, I'm actually supporting with WLS instead of tokens to try to help the value. I'm not going to take it and support it with my crazy coin because I'm already giving out a lot of crazy coins. So I figured I'll give out WLS instead. That way it's liquid. They can sell it, they can use it, they can invest it, they can not. So, maybe other whales that aren't part of the dev team or don't have a token decide that they want to start supporting projects. That would be awesome. Also, I forgot what I was going to say. I was so anxious to talk and speak my part on it, and didn't get there. Thanks, IntelliGuy, for losing my train of thought. But it's I know what it was. As far as the trending goes, some people need tokens to get to trending. Popularity is decided by the amount of whale tokens you use. I hope trending goes away. A lot of the dev team feels the same way. So maybe in 2 months, trending just doesn't even exist anymore, and then people can stop worrying about it so much.
Yeah, 100%. We've all definitely talked about that, either making it go away or recoding the algorithm that decides what's trending. It could be the number of reward shares in relation to the number of, say, comments and replies, which makes it more trending based on community interaction, active interaction versus trending and value. We never wanted the platform to always be revolving around money. It's supposed to be around sharing and community and stuff. So changing the metrics of how things are, analyzed is much better. IntelliGuy, yeah.
See, and in the one breath, Sweeney, you're saying that you're mad that you can't, get your own token now and use it the way you wanted to because we decided to close markets on official tokens. And then in this next breath, you're saying trending would be useful if people couldn't decide how much their post can earn. Well, people could decide how much their post could earn by buying whale tokens, and now they can't. So hopefully that actually helps out your trending feed or whatnot for you guys. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I hate trending myself. I never go there. I never go to trending and go, oh, I wonder what's trending. I should go, and I actually don't even go to people that I follow. I go to people who follow me. That's how I curate, or I curate in new.
Yeah, and on that comment with Sweeney there, as far as your token not being for voting, but that is the concept behind the whale tokens itself. Whale tokens are meant to be earned and used for rewarding posts. That's their only purpose. That's what they were envisioned for by Fuzzy, even over in Steemit, even though they were left in an open market. But coming over here, we had talked earlier about actually not having them on the market when we first started, but we left them open kind of see, it's kind of like you let the market play itself out. So we watched what happened and then came to the decision that it's actually less beneficial to have it open. It was actually causing damage to the WLS market and things like that. So this is the decision we made for now, and it can be reevaluated in a few months. Not a big deal. JG Glake, you had made a comment about why less tokens. That was something I had mentioned earlier when I was talking about the update that we made on the post. The whale tokens right now, if you go to whaleshares.info and you look at the value behind those tokens, they have a value between 400 and 800 WLS for a full reward, which is kind of, it's, if you look in relation to Fuzzy's Beyond Bits and Whaleshare tokens that were over on Steemit, at their peak, they were throwing around $80. So when we look at the whale tokens we have now, you take some of the bigger ones that are throwing 800 WLS. For a while, we had WLS trading at 50 cents, just to make it easy math on my brain. That's a $400 relative vote, and if 400 USD, like Chucky just wrote there, is being thrown down for a photo contest winner, I mean, that is something that is well beyond we ever gave out in the contest that Fuzzy was running over on Steemit for people who were doing tutorial videos. They were having a value somewhere around maybe 200 USD. So you have to kind of put things into perspective and say, we don't need 5 different monster super tokens rewarding a photography winner and then all of a sudden throwing $1,000 because someone made a nice photo. It has to be in relationship to the ecosystem of the platform itself. But at the same time, saving tokens, saving the tokens actually is a negative to the whale token ecosystem. If the tokens are not being used and cycled back through the system, then the tokens can no longer be given out. So it actually hurts the whole whale token and Whaleshares ecosystem long term if people are not using those to reward posts. We can only give out X number of tokens per week based on them being given back. That's just the way it works with the tokens. So if people are holding on to them and not using them, then the whale token owners actually have to stop giving them out.
I can see clearly now the rain has gone.
Yeah, Nepti, is Nepti in here or no? He is in here. What do you mean by 70% of them being dead? Did you burn them or? Oh, somebody's hoarding that money. Gotcha. See, and I had that problem too. I issued, X amount to myself thinking, oh, I'll only give this much out. And then I ran out and a bunch weren't coming back to me. So I issued more to myself. And then I ran out again and had to issue more to myself. So luckily now, especially with the markets being closed, they're coming back to me more rapidly than they should. That's the other thing with me. I'm not manually curating on my Crazy Witness account. So if people aren't using the tokens, that mana is just going to waste. It's just going to waste completely.
Yeah, see, that was something Fuzzy had brought up a lot of times, and with both Whaleshare tokens and his BeyondBit tokens. But even right now, he's mentioned even in the BitShares hangouts we have that he's reduced the number of BeyondBits he's given out, even rewarding people for doing development work, because more people were holding the tokens and starting to buy and sell and trade them on the DEX instead of using them on their posts over on Steemit. So that actually hurts the BeyondBit token ecosystem itself. There needs to be that balance between use and hold or use and sell. And if you have an imbalance for people who are just holding them, waiting for some kind of value that may or may not happen, the token ecosystem itself collapses. So they definitely need to be used, get them back to their token owners, earn them again, and keep the cycle going.
If anybody has any questions, you can feel free to jump on the mic or typey type them. But if you're typing them, you want to tag one of us because the chat goes really fast.
Yeah, just on the side note about Nep had mentioned about, is there a negative thing about not being the official whale token? No, there's not. There's nothing negative about not being an official whale token. It's just a matter of, in that group right now, as we're experimenting on how they're going to be using the platform, the ones that are in that official group say will be the ones that are sponsoring in the WhaleTank and other things like that. It doesn't mean anything bad about other community tokens that are coming up, because we've always mentioned that there will always be that second level of tokens that are basically community tokens that just are, say, working towards being in the whale token classification. That's all. So there's really nothing negative about not being that. It's just a matter of what you can and cannot participate in as far as the official events and things like that.
Masterminds, as far as whether or not the whale tokens will trade again, we'll evaluate over time to see if it makes sense to trade again. I saw up above that Dan had asked, what if the WLS price goes down instead of going up with the change being made? That's something that we're all, watching very closely. You have to remember, it's good for everybody if WLS price is stabilized. It's not just good for token holders, it's good for everyone. And we all pay a lot of attention to this. This is a, either part-time job or full-time job for many of us that are here. So we are paying attention. We want to keep everybody's best interest in mind, the platform's interest in mind. We love this place. So, we're not going to let it get to the point where we're doing something that's damaging. We try it for a while. If it works, we keep doing it. When it doesn't make sense anymore, then maybe we open them back up again.
I have a question. I spoke to Fuzzy quite a lot last year about what he had planned for this platform, and he always made out it was going to be what he described as a sharing platform, so shorter posts, memes, that kind of stuff. Now, I found it really interesting to hear what he said in words, but I'm not a dev, and I think PowerPix, you might be, or you work with the dev team. So just wondering if you could give us some sort of insight in how you think the platform will change in the future.
Okay, well, let's see. I try to dance through this topic each week because, to be fully honest, the members of the dev team have pretty much agreed not to disclose the bulk of what's being worked on, simply because every time we seem to open our mouths, either here or in the BitShares Hangout, or Fuzzy mentions something, magically those ideas are first attacked and then stolen and used somewhere else. We've seen it repeatedly over time, so we kind of keep what we're working on close to the chest at first. But there's definitely going to be changes. Like, remember, Fuzzy even mentioned last week about the community aspect about it. We've mentioned about it evolving into that social sharing platform and that friends sharing platform. So those are, if we, let's see, if you look at it in that way, it's basically, you think about the way Facebook and Instagram works. You have communities of people that you can say friends with or approve to be friends with, and you share or like within those groups and communities. And we really want to focus on groups and communities instead of it being kind of a Wild West free range system that you had over on Steemit. You see some of those changes happening now on the platform, just the way we're kind of coding things in the background to kind of prepare ourselves for these changes that are on the way. It's just tricky because I can't really go too deep into what's actually coming.
That's okay. The thing I would say then is that ties in with a metaphor that Fuzzy used, which I wasn't sure about it. He kept saying it's going to be kind of like this, and he said a couple of times it's going to be kind of like a circle jerk. And it stuck in my mind because it was a funny metaphor, but I suppose that's what you're working to then. Rather than one great big nebulous glob like Steemit was, more sort of interrelated communities where you can move between and with friends. So just having that metaphor is something that I find quite useful, because I've got it in my head now. Okay, this is what we're moving towards.
Right, and it was just,
Well, yeah,
oh, go ahead, Krista.
Fuzzy envisioned it as a friend sharing network to where friends could share and reward with each other. So the whole idea of that is, you know, not me and my 5 friends, but eventually, you know, you will find people possibly break off into smaller groups, you know. Maybe they have different, like, just like if you look at it as that other platform, okay, that we all reference, look how many different discords and communities exist there. I don't see any reason why the same thing can't happen with Whaleshares eventually as it grows. There might be a lot of different you know, smaller communities within the community, and that's perfectly fine. I'm sure eventually there will be, you know, 30 different Whaleshares discords that, you know, people could join.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Just good to get an idea of where things are going from you guys as well.
Yeah, that was good. That's pretty much what I was going to say too. And then just remember, if you need to, go back and check last week's recording from the Hangout, because we did have Fuzzy on, and we do have the recording with him giving his, you know, his visions of everything, and I think his circle jerk comment was in last week's Hangout as well. So it's kind of funny that he used that term. But yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Nifty.
Hey, how's it going? Just wanted to introduce myself to those that haven't met me before. I am NEPD. You can call me NEPD if you want. Yeah, I typically don't jump on these hangouts, but I have a little time now, and just had a couple questions, I guess, about the market stuff going forward, just so I can make a quick decision on the Whaleshares tokens.
Yeah, go ahead. That's what these hangouts are for. So we would love to hear your questions and answer them the best we can.
Thanks, Krista. So my main one was kind of answered by Power Picks a little bit, and I've probably missed a couple of it while I was helping the kids here. But if Whaleshares or whatever token would happen to become unofficial, I understand that would be no longer listed on whaleshares.info, etc. But as for users of the tokens and anything else, no harm would come to them, etc.
No, I don't see any reason why anyone would treat anybody any differently, whether they were using, you know, a token that was unofficial. I mean, I have Whaleshares myself, have always used them on Steemit. Actually was using them on Steemit still when I could have been using them on Whaleshares for more money, but that was my silly mistake. Nobody else's. So I don't see any reason why anyone would look down on it.
I have a question for Nipid. Would it, while they're doing this cooling off period for the way that the whale tokens are being restructured, is it possible just to make sure that your token works on the other networks that you support as opposed to Whaleshares just in the short term?
Hey, Intel guy. So you're saying just only allow for it to be used on Steemit and anywhere else for the time being?
Just for the next week or two, that's all. While they're whatever they're doing with whale tokens at the present moment.
Perhaps I missed what they were currently doing with the whale tokens. All I've seen is the market stuff, I guess. People are still, you know, using tokens on Whaleshares for me right now.
The problem seems to be we have a couple of individual people that are deliberately stacking multiple whale tokens at the current time, and they're buying them ultra cheap on the market. And these like for instance, it's mentioned that Hagen has 30,000 milk tokens. Milk tokens were available prior to the Whaleshares launch. So if whatever tokens are available, he's going to gravitate that. So soon he'll be using Whaleshares and milk together to try and upvote his posts while the rest of the whale tokens are off the market or something.
I'm not sure that milk tokens are available to trade at this point. I think that they have already been unavailable. But with milk tokens, they're kind of they're kind of a unique case because they were given out earlier and they were given out in large amounts in some case earlier, which is why it takes more to receive a reward at this point than it does some of the other tokens. So you have to have 500 milk tokens would be equal to 100 hair shares or 100 crazy coin, not in stake, but as far as how much it takes to get a full reward.
Okay, I'll bow out of the conversation. That was just my question, Epid, if it made sense just to disable it for a week or two or something until this gets sorted out. That's all.
Yeah, I've removed, you know, any of my orders from the market already. So what I'm looking for is, yeah, I mean, I can probably have Fuzzy disable it. Fuzzy is actually the creator of the hair shares token, and you know, kind of put me in charge of that. So I would actually have to get him to disable the markets for me. But if that does get done, we can see, you know, if nobody's complaining about it a week or whatever, then I guess this becomes a moot discussion.
We can't hear you, Napt, if you're still talking.
Can you hear me now?
Hey, now we can hear you.
My bad. I don't know where I cut off there, but yeah, if we would choose to close that down, I'd actually have to get Fuzzy to get that done. He's the original creator of the hair shares token, so that would be something that if he does, then nobody's complaining about it. You know, that have used the tokens in the past on BitShares. Then it would become a moot discussion, and we would have no problems keeping it that way.
Yeah, just have a roundtable with Krista, PowerPix, and Fuzzy on that issue. That's all.
Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, Cotter had made a comment about I believe so. I think the null account is still active over on Whaleshares. I will confirm that just to make sure, but I do believe null is burning tokens just the same as on their platform. And when you decline a post, it's basically going to null, it's burning it.
Yeah, and as far as earlier you guys talking about, like, if person A wants to trade person B tokens, I mean, I would say be careful with that because all the tokens are different values, you know, like the pixel token, beehive token, all those tokens are huge compared to my tokens. So if somebody wants to be silly and trade crazy coin for beehive, like, I guess the joke's on them, who's ever trading the beehive to them. And, you know, I've got, you know, a couple people that just go out and just use my token to curate in the community. So they pick content that they like. That way I am not even involved in that. They are people I trust. So I send them, you know, a larger amount. They go through, they use it all on curating. They don't use any of it on themselves, just like they're not supposed to. So, I mean, there are ways to get token votes without even earning tokens or knowing someone who is earning them.
I'd like to thank you guys, by the way, for bringing this forward this day, because we had an emergency meeting, it seemed like, last night, where it was an unofficial live event where there was about 15 people in the room, and it took about an hour and a half. Acrid was there, and we had a lot of similar discussions. It's a breath of fresh air that you guys are already aware of the issue and brought it forward to everybody. So thanks for being on top of things.
Well, yeah, we don't always know how to fix the problems, and we're not always going to know how to fix the problems. And long after the dev team steps back and it's all in the community's hands, they're not always going to know how to fix the problems either, right? So it just kind of comes down to the fact that we're trying. We hope that you all are trying as well to do your best, and your involvement is important here as well as ours is. You know, if we didn't have an audience telling us what their concerns were and giving us questions, nothing would ever get answered.
Yeah, just to answer the question that came up about the images and stuff. I'll check with Bob just to make sure again, but I know that we're working on both Whaleshares and Smoke for the image services and like load balancing and all that kind of tech stuff. I haven't checked myself to ask them if that was completed yet, so I'll find out. Okay, because I know part of what they were trying to do too is I'm trying to think what I heard them catch on the other server. It might have been about lowering, yeah, the limit, yeah, lowering the limit as far as file size and things like that. So I'll check and confirm that, and then get back to everyone here, even post it somewhere so people know what the either size limit values or whatever the update is.
I don't know if you're asking if there will be an additional share drop or if you're asking if there will be another claim period. As far as claim periods go, there has not been a consensus yet on whether or not there will be a third, fourth continuing claim period. In the second claim period, only 6 people came through and claimed. So we're trying to weigh on if that's something that's needed or not. I'm guessing there probably will be, but I'm only one person, so I can't really answer that question. But as far as okay, you were talking about a claim period, not a share drop. I was gonna say, as far as a share drop, there was just, the one share drops. Yes, and as I gave you the link above, Indigo Ocean, that will tell you all about WhaleTokens, how to use them, what they are, the list of who they go to. Really useful website there. I am putting together a room this week. I will probably work on it tomorrow morning. Lost actually helped me compile the information for it, and it'll just be called Whaleshares Toolbox, and that will have all the different tools that are working with Whaleshares right now. If anybody has one that's not well known, I would love if you would go ahead and pass that over to me so I could kind of compile it into my list. That would be helpful. Are you asking what I'm talking about? I'm talking about like Whaled Live and what's the other one? WLS Rewards Now. Anything like that that might be helpful, whaleshares.info, just different places that you can go for different tools that work with whaleshares.io to kind of make your experience a better one, or help you figure out pending rewards, or hey, who upvoted me, or sorry, shared me lately. So I'll get that put into a room. Hopefully tomorrow you'll see a new room pop up.
Yeah, and I just saw the thing about that FTSH, whatever token that went by. I'd be super careful with that because I don't think that's related to anything anymore. There's been some news going around that was an asset on the DEX and is being pulled and moved over to Ethereum, and is basically screwed over a whole community of people that bought into that token. So just be careful.
Yeah, and he hasn't even been around to indicate whether or not it's going on, but I do know that he had said publicly that it would only be used in that way for a while. And like I said, I've saw some chatter as well that it's not even being used that way anymore. So he put out an announcement that his other thing was ready. So. Yeah, Chucky, that's also a reason why there'll be official tokens. Like if anybody comes to me and says, hey, I just sent LexiBit and it's not working, can you check why? I'll go check why. And as long as it's not an exorbitant amount of LexiBit, I just send them the LexiBit, right? If I have it. If I don't, then I would contact Chucky. Hey, Chucky, by the way, your token's not working. I can do that with Chucky. I can't do that with the Goon or Fiesteam or whatever. I don't know him well enough. He doesn't know me well enough to where I have his tokens or whatever. So it's just kind of, any of the 14 that are listed on there. I know the people. I know who to contact. I know how to check to see whether or not they worked. Same thing with PowerPix. PowerPix can check that. Bushkill can check that. We can all check that. Anyone who owns a token has access to the room to see whether or not Crazy Coin vote went through. So it's important to remember, official tokens, I'll back those. I'll stand by any of those token owners, the tokens themselves. I have no problem like rewarding them, or, oh, hey, I don't have any of this token, but here, have 10 Crazy Coins since you lost 10 of whatever. So that's an important aspect to it as well.
Yeah, to answer Snecky's question, yeah, that's something earlier in the Hangout here I was talking about. On the official post, we mentioned it as well. Once we get past a few other updates and also bringing the WhaleTank back into play, we'll have, we'll iron some more things out with these WhaleTokens and how they're being used and then their impact on the ecosystem. And once we get that all sorted out and we know things are smoothed out, as few negative side effects as possible, then we'll kind of open up that process for other, token owners, people who have stake on the Whaleshares platform, to apply to have their tokens included in all the different privileges that the official WhaleToken classification gives you. So that'll come down the road as we get there, yeah. Baby steps. Remember, we're only 2 months in, baby steps.
2 months in and 1 hour into the chat. So if anybody has any questions, so we don't have a bunch of dead air, go ahead and either, type them in the chat or go ahead and get on the mic. Mic should be open.
How big are the projects that the WhaleTank would like to see get going?
I would say that anybody, the way that it worked in the past, you would go onto a post and basically RSVP saying that you wanted to come talk about the projects. And they would allow, I believe it was 3 projects at the time. I don't know how it'll be structured. We really need to have a meeting about it, and we will be, hopefully this week sometime. So, but people would RSVP, and it was basically on a first come first serve basis. And then if they didn't get on that first week, then maybe they would go in the next week and decide that they wanted to RSVP. So the RSVP would come out on like a Wednesday or a Thursday or whatever. And then on the weekend, the WhaleTank would happen. And so I don't think the projects need to be big at all. Really. They just have to have a solid backing to them and basically give a good summary of what they're trying to accomplish.
Okay, let me kind of rephrase just a little bit. Would the WhaleTank be interested in stuff that may be a business and not actually just a project, which could in return establish value for the Whaleshares token too?
In the past, I mean, all different things. Whaleshares was actually supported by WhaleTank. I was actually there when he came on and pitched his idea and got funding via, Beyond Bits from Fuzzy. There was, what was that? The Family Protection, Steam It World Map actually came and pitched themselves on there. There was actually a kind of neat project. I don't remember what the project name was, but Topsoul was the token. I still hold it in my wallet to this day. It's not worth anything at this point, but that was to support like solar energy. So I don't know if any of you have ever went to the EOS talks, but kind of the same idea, getting guests to come on and talk about things. The only difference is it's like based like a Shark Tank. So 3 different presentations. In the past, it was, one of them got the reward out of the 3. I don't know how it'll work. Maybe everybody gets a reward this time. I don't know how many tokens we're looking at having it support it. So there's a lot of things that need to be ironed out. So.
Yeah, true. And then of course, going along with this on the WhaleTank as it launches again, back in the day, it was only supported by Fuzzy. The other whales on Steemit kind of scoffed at his idea. They decided that selling delegation and voting within their own whale groups and stuff was more important than supporting the community. So over time, Fuzzy had to kind of reroute his funds to development of other projects. So the WhaleTank was temporarily closed, and now that we have it, this platform built over here for Whaleshares, we can bring it back, and it will be supported by over 10 different WhaleTokens this time instead of just 1. So we'll be able to throw a whole lot more value and funding at projects. But like Krista mentioned, the details on how that will work, or can tokens overlap on supporting, or each token supporting certain types of projects, those are things that are still being discussed to get hammered out. So we'll definitely have more announcement posts about the WhaleTank as we move forward. It shouldn't be too far out.
Coderin, as far as what Fuzzy's focused on right now, Fuzzy kind of built himself a team so that he could kind of focus on things that he was passionate about. I know for a fact that he's working in quite a few EOS projects at the time, which makes sense because he owns a lot of stake in EOS. So I would understand completely why he's doing that. So I really can't speak for him on what he's like focusing on. He's still around. You can still grab his ear.
Yeah, his focus is making sure that a lot of these projects and chains actually work together. So even though he is working with projects with EOS, he's working on inter-blockchain communication projects that are actually going to tie back together and bring value back to Whaleshares and BitShares in relationship to those other projects. So there's definitely a lot of connection things going on in the background that will bring value back to this platform itself.
NepD is asking if you would clarify this power picks in an effort to maximize the reach and benefits of the whale tokens. We will be limiting the ability to stack multiple whale tokens supporting any one given contest, challenge, or initiative. He just wants you to elaborate.
Okay. Yeah, that was, no, that has to do with, for example, right now, in the early days, we had a lot of initiatives and contests running on Whaleshares that are supported by multiple tokens at the same time. And given the value that each of the whale tokens now hold on their own, it's kind of disproportionate to the rewards being given for those individual contests or challenges. So, for example, some contests were running either photography or small sharing contests, whatever it was, and they might have 5 whale tokens that were assigned to them or sponsored by them. Some of those overlap in the tokens were just because the contest originators weren't even clear that they were pitching multiple token owners at the same time, and things were distributed the way they were. At the same time, because of that, people were being rewarded, say, in 3, 4, 5 different tokens. They weren't using the tokens on their own post when they earned them. They were going straight to the DEX to sell them out cheap, which was kind of feeding the problem we were having with the tokens being used to backdoor the system to buy in instead of WLS. So it's kind of a compound issue that was overlapping. Yeah.
Right. We found out, I mean, we were like talking to each other. Oh, wait, you're supporting that too. I'm also supporting that. Then, you find out that a lot of we want the tokens to kind of be spread out more. And if there's, 5 tokens supporting one contest or one individual that runs varying contests, even, that seems like a bit much. IntelliGuy was mentioning that he would like to see a cap on rewards on posts. I told him to go ahead and drop it in the governance discussion room, but he said, I'd like to see a maximum payout for a post. No one should really get more than 1,000 WLS, should they? I don't.
And by the way, read the second sentence I just posted, which said voluntarily excluding oneself from going over 1,000. I'd choose that option, just because sometimes I'm quite happy with making a certain limit, and I don't want to make more than that. And if I could cap my own post, I would do that.
I guess that would kind of depend on me. Like, we've talked about this before, IntelliGuy, you and I. You don't post, every day. Some people post every day, so I'm kind of torn on that. It kind of goes back to, I respect Fuzzy and I respect his vision, and Fuzzy's vision was use your stake how you want to use it, right? I agree with you also that maybe that's not, maybe no rules do cause chaos, but I do believe in what Fuzzy stands for, and he stands for you should use your stake how you want to use it. So some of the people that do give me rewards sometimes will give me like 200 at a time. So,
and to be fair, Fuzzy also said, I am not the leader or the CEO of this chain. It's a community effort. So when I say something, it's just my opinion only, and it's not to be construed as being the power down or the power authority coming from just me. So please, you guys all decide.
Yep, and I can also say that as well. I'm just one individual, right? I don't make the rules.
We'll find love and governance. I'll go to that channel. I need to use it more.
Yeah, I mean, people should be using that for sure. You should tell people about it. Everybody should tell people about that. There's another one too. I can't think of what it's called in this very moment, but feedback room. So a good way to have that, you know, we're recording right now, so all of this is being recorded, but sometimes if you're just like typing something in general and having discussions in there, that's going to get lost if it's not you know, in a concentrated spot. So that's why those rooms are there.
Yeah, and I put the comment as it was going by here, just saying that that's all part of this becoming a DAC over time and the community taking control in the next couple months as we move forward. So. All right, so if there's no more major questions, we can kind of wrap up the recorded portion of tonight's show and just move to the general discussion in the after party. So I'll go ahead and wrap this up. Again, it was November 6, 2018, Whaleshares Hangout number 10. And thank everyone for joining us, and we'll catch you next week. Good night, everyone.